Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the second webinar of the Social Media Institute series. My name is Megan Murtis. I will be your keynote speaker for this four-part webinar series hosted by Lumina Foundation. So I might look familiar. I was one of the speakers on the last webinar. Today, I am joined by two other guest speakers, Kat Velde, our design director, and Heather Lambie, our content consultant. So today we're going to give you the recipe for a winning content strategy. We'll be discussing brainstorming tactics, content calendars, creative best practices, and navigating trends. So while we're waiting for more people to join in, go ahead and drop your name, your school, and your favorite social media trend, if you have one, into the chat. And I can go first. My favorite trend right now is letting the Gen Z intern write the marketing script. Oh, yay, we have some answers in. Let's see. Dang the baby hippo.
Mudang, I love him so much.
I hope she plays Hot to Go. Yep, love that. The Barbenheimer memes went strong last year.
If you guys love that hippo, have you seen Pesto the penguin, who is like taller and bigger than all of the adult penguins and is still a baby? Look him up after Pesto the penguin.
We have a lot of pesto fans. Okay, well, we have a pretty full day today. I know that some others are still joining, but I'll go ahead and get us kicked off. To recap, this is how to win a crafting or how to craft a winning content strategy. We'll be talking about creative best practices, content calendars, and navigating trends. So to get started, let's jump into some examples of what not to do on social media. So social media, like any marketing tactic, is a representation of your brand and should be handled with care. So in these examples, you'll see some missteps that led to small and large failures. On a smaller scale, poor social media content really just leads to wasted time and resources, resulting in little to no engagement. In this example, Bike Indianapolis, they're using a lot of text, graphics. It's a very busy image that looks like it might have been created originally as a poster, especially with having the barcode on there, the QR code, I mean. So definitely avoid things like that. Another example, Indigo Bus, they use humor to kind of reel their audience in. However, this one kind of fell flat with asking, would you kiss a frog for $3,000? It just doesn't equate right off the brain that this is Indigo. So I think a lot of people can scroll past it. Also, it was published on September 11th, which isn't the best time to be, sharing humorous content. On a larger scale, social media can result in bad press and even a loss of income. For example, It Ends With Us was a popular book talk book that was turned into a movie. And when promoting the film, the studio did not include trigger warnings for domestic violence scenes included in the film, which left many consumers upset after watching it. So on their social media pages, book readers were kind of scrutinizing the film for that and just wanting to see better things from the brand and the studio. So whether it's on a small or large scale, your content matters. And a winning content strategy can set you apart in the market. Duolingo is a prime example of this. You can see here, this is a pretty recent TikTok of theirs. They are, kind of newsjacking off of the most popular pop culture things happening right now. So Charlie XCX, it has been huge this past summer with her album Brat, and she just went on tour. So they sent a bunch of ambassadors with their iconic green owl to the concert. You can see some of the other examples of them using humor or newsjacking with Barbie and the Tortured Poets Department. So really, Duolingo does it best. They are one of the best brands because they focus on their audience, which is millennials and Gen Z. They understand them very well. They show that they understand it with their content, and they chose TikTok to really like hone in on reaching new target audiences. Knowing that we are community colleges marketing to current and prospective students, how can we learn from these wins and fails to create a content strategy that will produce results? Today, we're going to discuss 4 key areas that will affect your content strategy. First, we're going to call it back to webinar 1 and game plan how to connect your social strategy with your content strategy. We'll then discuss how to organize these plans into a content calendar. And then we'll spend a majority of our time today focusing on creative best practices. It's important to note that this webinar in particular is going to focus on static creative best practices. So think photography, graphics, carousels, stories, and captions. Video obviously is a huge component of social, which is why we are saving video for the next webinar. So we can really dive in and understand how we can utilize video for getting better engagement and reach. So we'll also discuss trends, give you some tools and tips for how to get started on a winning content strategy. And then lastly, we'll provide a 10-minute Q&A session. So picking up where we left off in our last session, we'll start by revisiting the foundational principles of your social media strategy. This diagram should look familiar. We last time talked about understanding your audience, conducting audits through reports to figure out where you stand against your competitors and against your own performance from years past. We talked about how to set SMART goals, tying tactics to help achieve those goals, and then selecting the right platforms that make sense based on your audience and goals. But today, we're going to be focusing all on content. It's important to have a social media strategy that really aligns with your content strategy to better show that you understand your audience. So that being said, it's easy to create content for content's sake, but we need to be intentional. Ask yourself, what content will move the needle for us? What are the topics that truly resonate with our audience? And then look at platforms. How do we adapt our content for each platform? Do we want to focus on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn? It is really going to change based on like which platforms and audiences that you're focusing on. Then lastly, look at your goals and figure out, is this really going to help me to achieve my goal in the end? So the important thing about a content strategy is that success looks different for everyone, but it all begins with posting consistently. Posting, 3 to 5 times per week is really best practice to help social media platforms increase your reach and viewability in users' feeds. So that's a huge portion of it, is just posting consistently. From there, you can plan out your content in a calendar by planning out a month or even a quarter ahead. Just leave some room for flexibility, knowing that things might change or there might be, other topics or trends that you want to discuss. Of course, video is a major driver of success, which is why we'll be spending a whole webinar next time talking about it. And then kind of the the peak of the pyramid is going to be trends. They are very difficult to hop on because they die off quickly, but they have the most potential for your content to go viral, which is why we will start talking about it today and continue on in the next webinar. So let's focus on posting consistently first by using a content calendar. Content calendar is going to be one of the most important tools in your social media arsenal. It helps you to stay consistent, focused, and prepared. So it should map out not just when you post, but what you're posting and on which platform. When it comes to brainstorming social posts, there's not a wrong way to do it. There's a lot of different tools and resources that you can use. Especially, it can be difficult and challenging being on, say, like a team of one. Something that I would recommend starting with is leveraging AI. So something just as simple as ChatGPT going in and giving it a prompt will help you to really start thinking about, okay, what new things could I be talking about on our social media channels? In this example, you can see we ask the machine learning, act as a social media manager for community college and give me 10 to 15 ideas for how we can showcase our diverse student body and inclusive campus culture through visual content. From there, your machine learning will spit out some ideas. You can then ask it, you can tell it what you like and what you don't like and what you want to see more of. And then you really just start teaching it. So that's a really great way to brainstorm ideas if you're on your own. Another way is to tap into social listening, check out what other people are talking about online, students, faculty, alumni, then connect with your internal network. It's really helpful to meet up with other departments who might have affiliate social media pages, right? So maybe it's a sports page or a science class, something like that. They can usually give you a lot of ideas about things to promote when it comes to like special events and things like that. Stay up to date with industry news. So you can follow publications and things. We'll give you guys a few accounts that we recommend that you follow later on. Consider holidays, events, and observances. Just make sure that you're being strategic. You don't need to post for every social media holiday ever because that would be every single day of the calendar year. You don't probably need to post for, say, National Cheese Day or something like that. But just be very considerate when picking, which holidays, events, and observances that matter the most to your school and your students. Lastly, stay flexible. It's always important to be willing to move content around and move quickly on things like trends. Then there's content categories. Content categories, I like to use these because it really starts giving you an idea of how to balance out your content, striking the tone, the balance between your tone of voice being informative, educational, humorous. So keep a variety of categories in mind to keep your content interesting and well-rounded. Then we've provided you guys with a content calendar example. The plotting out the content calendar is the most important part of your social media strategy, arguably, because it's really taking what we did in webinar 1 and putting it to paper. This is an example of just an Excel spreadsheet that I use to keep track of different posts for clients. It just really allows me to have cross-team collaboration. So you can use a spreadsheet. You can also use your social media management tools such as Sprout Social or Loomly. So whenever you're getting started, I would recommend look for your upcoming events, holidays, and observances. Start plotting those out because you really can't move them around. Then start thinking about your educational content. What's maybe a little bit more of a heavy topic? Start putting those into your calendar. Make sure to space them out so you're not having too dense of topics back to back, because then you may risk losing the attention span of your followers. And speaking of fun things, you can sprinkle in your kind of evergreen, fun, entertaining content, which might be like a Tiny Mic interview series, memes, questions, those kind of things to engage your audience. So now that we have a calendar, let's dive into some creative best practices with Kat Velde.
Thank you, Megan. As Megan mentioned, today we're going to focus on static creative best practices and hopefully empower you to take your static creative up a level and start incorporating some new design elements. When it comes to posting photography, there are a lot of best practices to follow. Definitely use high resolution, well-lit, non-blurry or pixelated photos, especially with the younger audience. That's something that immediately to them is a turnoff because they're used to seeing very high quality images all across their feed. Limit your posts to 5 photos on Facebook and LinkedIn to avoid creating an entire album view. On Instagram, though, you have the flexibility to post more with carousels, which is great. Definitely avoid using Instagram filters. You'll always want to opt for natural edits and natural lighting. If you do use stock photos, find ones that feel authentic to your brand and your student population and that don't feel overly staged. And if you are going to use AI generated images, there's really only a few use cases where that's really necessary. It's better for when you're sourcing student photography to have that sourced from your students or from your own photographer. So some examples here for professional photography, it's great to use for important events and news like graduation, welcome week, homecoming, anything like that where you have a ton of quality photos to share. For user-generated photography, it's great for campus life or events, and both are really great for facilities, educators, students, and events. As far as images versus graphics, there are some best practices here as well. So if you're bringing all of these elements together, definitely limit your text to headlines and subheadlines only. Any of that additional context can be placed in your caption to give users more context about whatever you're speaking to. One big thing is that it's really not necessary to include your logo within the graphic that you're posting on your social media. Your profile pic will always be associated with that post, even if it's shared across someone else's story, they share it to their story. Your profile is following that post always, and that it will always be linked back to your profile. For Instagram, it is better to focus on fewer graphics and just really focus on photos because that's what people are used to seeing within their feed. You really want your posts to feel authentic to the platform that you're posting on. You don't want to feel over commercialized. You really want it to feel organic to their feed, like you're almost their friend and that it just fits seamlessly into their experience. For Facebook and LinkedIn and X, you can definitely use more graphic-based posts, again, because that's what people are more used to seeing on those platforms. So some examples with this is to show a meme for relatability, or use something interactive like a relatable tweet or quiz that could encourage your users to post comments, like your post, or even share it to their own stories to increase engagement. So carousels are a great way to make static creative more interesting. So they're available on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. And this just allows you to post multiple photos within one post. And your users will be able to scroll through that and see everything that you've posted within one. You can connect your photography on carousels. So what I mean when I say this is that it spans maybe 2 scrolls for one long horizontal photo. That really encourages users to keep scrolling. They want to see what you're kind of peeking at for the next slide. For photography, you can also post images. They should be primarily all the same size, but like I said, if you want to get creative with it, you could expand one horizontal photo over 2. For Instagram, it's a max of 20 carousels right now. It used to be 10, they just upped this. But one thing to note is like that amount is great to post when you're talking about large events like homecoming or graduation. But if you're trying to create action, 20 images in one post is a little much because people probably won't reach all the way to the end. On TikTok, you can post carousels and use in-app text tools, which is great. On LinkedIn, they are uploaded as a PDF, but it almost becomes like a scrollable PDF viewer, which is actually pretty nice too. And one thing to note is that carousels do get the highest engagement right below videos on social media. So definitely utilize them. Thanks. Okay, so when it comes to stories, we really want to use this for timely content. Maybe your marketing manager is covering an event on campus, taking live photos or videos, encouraging people to come check something out. It's great for times like that. You'll want to opt for a vertical format, which is that 1080 by 1920. It takes up the full width of the screen. But with that, you want to avoid placing any content in the top or bottom 250 pixels because this area is covered by Instagram with the send a message bar and with your profile bar. It's great to post on your stories daily if you can. It can be something small and quick, or it could be more of a question series or things like that. When you're layering text on top of stories, you'll definitely want to opt for the more simple in-app fonts on Instagram, such as modern, classic, or literature. There are quite a few, I'll say more fun fonts out there, but maybe not the most professional for this use case. You'll want to make sure that if you are adding text over it, that they have a background or some sort of drop shadow so that it's not getting lost within that photography. So Instagram highlights, save key stories as highlights on your profile to make them permanent. So when you're on your profile, you can create highlights that will show up. They could be different categories like student life, sports, events. And at any time, someone can go to your profile and look through those stories. So it does make them more evergreen than that one day that you posted. So think of highlights as profile navigation for important information about your organization. So as far as stickers go on stories, this is where I'm talking about adding in text. Maybe you're adding in a GIF, maybe you're adding a link or video or music. These are all available within the Instagram app, which is really great. It's a great way to customize and make things a little bit more fun within the platform. So you can utilize their stickers like polling and questions. Those are great for engagement. You can tag a person, place, or hashtag to increase your reach. And links can be added using the link sticker. It is better to, when you're tagging or hashtagging, to utilize those stickers within Instagram. That's just going to increase your reach as instead of just typing it out as a text box. So definitely utilize the stickers. And you can also create an add yours sticker challenge. That's something where you post it and then users can add to that with the same kind of setup as you've showed, and then it kind of becomes a group of all of these stories of people contributing. One thing to avoid though on stickers on stories, there are a few gimmicky features like frames and backdrops and filters and avatars. Those just probably aren't best used for businesses and professionals, but there are so many other great options. So now that we've talked about posting best practices, let's talk through the captions that go with them with Heather.
Thank you, Kat. So the anatomy of a good caption. Let's put on our lab coats because we're going to dissect the anatomy of a good caption. You want to start by front loading the important information. Just like any good journalist, you don't want to bury the lead. If you have an attention grabber, like a question or a fact, a clever hook, a joke, you can always start with that. And questions especially are a great way to engage your audience and by asking them to respond. You want to keep it concise for optimal engagement. People don't like to read a long caption. And don't forget to use a consistent voice and tone that's in line with your brand. And it should be professional yet approachable. To make it easy to read and scan, you can use line breaks to break up both text and hashtags. And you want to use clear and specific CTAs, or calls to action, to guide your audience. Limit it to 1 CTA per post so things don't get confusing or overwhelming. For tagging, you want to use location tags so people can find you. And also, you can tag relevant partners to expand your reach. You do want to consider creating a tagging policy, so establish guidelines for when and how to tag individuals or organizations. For example, you don't want to tag personal pages, especially students, because there's no brand safety there. You don't know what those individuals have posted that may not be in line with your brand. But you could ask students to tag your college in their campus-related posts. Lastly, you want to customize your caption for each platform. Your audience might follow you on multiple platforms, so it's important to tailor your content for each social network. If you have links, use link shorteners like Bitly, or in the case of Instagram, again, if you're customizing your caption for each platform, you would put link in bio and then put the link there. For hashtags and emojis, you want to create a hashtag that's unique to your college and use it consistently across posts to build community and help prospective students who are researching your school find your posts. You can also create event-specific hashtags for recurring events like registration or athletic events to allow students to search that hashtag to find and participate in more events. Use a mix of popular and niche hashtags. You want to balance discoverability with targeted reach, and limit hashtag use to 2 to 9, depending on the platform. We've given you some examples here on the slide of when to use more and when to use less, when they're more effective. You want to research relevant hashtags. You can use tools like Hashtagify to find popular education-related tags. You can also use ChatGPT for writing captions and generating captions. Place hashtags strategically. On Instagram, consider putting them in the first comment to keep captions clean. And somebody asked about accessibility. When you are writing hashtags, to make them more accessible, use camel case, which basically means you capitalize the first letter of each word in a multi-word hashtag to make it easier for readers to translate. For emojis, feel free right now to put your favorite go-to emoji in the chat, just for funsies, so we can see what everybody loves to overuse for emojis. But you can use emojis to break up text. They can make longer captions more scannable, but be sure to use them sparingly and purposefully. They can add personality, but shouldn't overwhelm the message. Make sure they're relevant. For the example of the Owens Community College picture of the guy going like this, he also used the emoji, which is relevant and adorable. For accessibility, for emojis, be mindful of where you place them. Don't use them in between words or as a replacement for a word. Like the easiest example I can think of is I heart New York. You don't want to use a heart emoji because it won't translate on a reader. Be mindful of different interpretations of emojis. Some emojis can have multiple meanings across cultures, generations, and platforms. If you're unsure, ask someone under 25 and they can help you. And when using AI to help you write captions, if you are using ChatGPT, note that some machine learning can get a little crazy with the emojis. So try not to use more than 3 or 4. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So now we're going to talk a little bit about trends. I'm going to kick it back to Megan.
Thanks, Heather. Okay, trends. To identify trends, we're going to go to where they are born, and that's TikTok. TikTok they know that one of the reasons why they're so successful is because people can quickly make trends, hop on them, share them, engage in a lot of different ways. So when you're thinking about hopping on a trend and you're trying to identify it just to begin with, take a look at the TikTok Creative Center. You can create a free account, and they offer this to businesses and creators where you can go in, check out trending hashtags, songs, creators, TikTok videos. You can filter it by time. So maybe the last 7 days, the last 30 days. Then you can even click for, say, the songs, check approved for business use. So that way you can find music that is trending right now that you can actually use. You can also click on this See Analytics button, and that'll open up a dashboard letting you know who's engaging with and seeing this content. Here we can see whatever this trend was. It is primarily being used by those between the ages of 18 to 24. Heavily used, it looks like, in potentially Texas, or even a little bit of just like the mid, Southwest. Lots of information that you can glean from TikTok Creative Center. I'd highly recommend starting here. Then there are additional free resources that you can use, such as later.com. They are the ones who created Link in Bio, and now they offer just a lot of free resources, such as this blog post that gets updated on a weekly basis. It will tell you what are the trending reels on Instagram. They also have a version of this for TikTok. So I check in on these very frequently to get content ideas. X, still very important. This is where, we'll see a lot of news breaking first still, especially in sports and just other world news. So great place to go to see like what's trending for the day. Just make sure that you're keeping in mind that if X is where your audience is. Then there's Meta Inspiration Hub, which is kind of similar to TikTok Creative Hub. It is in your Meta Business Suite. It'll give you ideas for what's trending right now. But even better, I like to log into Trendy Minds Instagram account, and I'll just go to our Explore page, and I can get some content ideas. You can see here there's a lot of like creative things about like ideas for how to film a new reel, or how to place your text behind this matcha latte, it looks like. So really great resources here. Then if you want even more ideas for inspiration and how to, pick up on trends, follow some of these accounts. Your social publications and tools, so Sprout Social, Hootsuite, Canva, Later, those are just a few good examples. Then look outside of your industry. What are really big brands doing that have really large social media teams, such as Duolingo? NFL teams, one of the best accounts that you can follow are NFL teams, because I feel like they're just constantly staying up to date on trends and making their content stand out in the sports world. So really great options. I also like to personally follow a lot of food pages, because I feel like they have a great sense of humor. So Jimmy John's, Auntie Anne's, Doritos, those are just a few of my favorites. And then we included a few like individual creators as well. Pretty Little Marketer is my favorite in this list. You can see an example of their LinkedIn post. So they'll share PDFs like this, and you can swipe through them and see 6 things you've missed in marketing this week. It's a really good resource. So when it comes to trends, you need to consider these 5 things. First, timing. It's key. A niche trend might only last a few days, while viral trends can last a few weeks or even months. They might even end up turning into evergreen content. So if you can't create content quickly, just question whether or not it's worth hopping on the trend at all. You also need to ask yourself who's using this trend. If it's relevant to your students and campus life, then it could be a good fit. But if it doesn't align with your brand or audience, it's better to pass. Next, is it authentic? Don't force it. If your brand doesn't usually discuss this topic, don't try to relate to it by just hopping on the trend. You may look a little bit foolish if you try to hop on a trend that doesn't make sense for your content topic. For example, let's say there was the travel industry trend, right, where people were at the airport, they hopped over the phone, and then they were suddenly somewhere new in on vacation. That trend might not have worked well for as much for like a school. If someone was hopping over the phone and now they're at school, students may not perceive that the same way. So just make sure that you're being authentic. Then another big factor is hopping on a trend in legal considerations. Always be mindful of things like music copyright, trademarks that may stop you from joining in on the fun. Lastly, consider the context. If the trend stems from something that is harmful or inappropriate or just a sensitive topic, avoid it entirely. A good recent example that I thought of for this was from the presidential debate. There came a viral song that's been all over the internet. That is not a good trend for brands to hop on. It opens up a can of worms when it comes to your comments especially, but it just won't reflect very well on your brand if you were to, use something like that. So now that we have talked about how to connect your social strategy with your content strategy, what a calendar looks like, creative best practices and trends, we're going to pass it back to Heather and then to Kat and then myself, and we'll kind of give you guys some tips and recommendations for how to get started.
Thank you, Megan. So here are some content starters to help you start building out your social media editorial calendars. You can use interactive polls and surveys. Regularly poll current students about their interests, challenges, and what they'd like to see on social media. This is direct feedback that can inspire relevant content. Obviously, cover campus events, use upcoming events, deadlines, important dates as foundation for content planning. Share information about student club fairs, workshops, seminars, and sporting events. You can do department spotlights and rotate through different academic departments, highlighting unique programs, faculty achievements, or student projects, or do cross-departmental collaboration and work with different college offices like career services or student life to generate ideas and ensure diverse content. You can touch on social themes, as Megan already mentioned, align with seasons, holidays, or cultural observances that are relevant to your student body. And then you can do UGC or user-generated content campaigns and encourage students to share their experiences using specific hashtags like first day of school, which I did not camel case, but I will. Then feature the best submissions on your own page. You can also do student spotlights featuring profiles of students, showcasing their achievements, their projects, or involvement in campus activities. Don't forget community partnerships. Showcase the college's involvement with community service or highlight collaborations with local businesses or organizations that offer internships or job opportunities. Behind the scenes content is always fun. Show the hidden aspects of college or campus life, like how the library operates or what goes into the science labs or how your college radio station is run. Trending topics, adaptation. We already talked about how important trends are and how to find them. So I encourage you to spread your wings and stay current with trending hashtags and memes by adapting them to fit educational context when appropriate. You have challenges and contests. You can create engaging competitions that encourage student participation and showcase their talents. And then you can also cover study tips, resources, and career development. Students love these. Offer practical advice on study skills, time management, career preparation, and information about resources available on campus, like libraries, tutoring services, job fairs, internships, and more. To help you with all of this, which seems like a lot, I'm sure, because I know most of you are probably offices of one or two people, use your resources. You have marketing clubs with students who would love to get practice and have something to put on their resume, so utilize them. You have social media courses. You could ask the professors to collaborate with you on doing a project that involves getting students to generate content for you. You have student ambassadors. You can also start a department Slack channel to share posts that you like to inspire everybody. And if you still need specific examples after connecting with your resources, fear not. We have some great ideas for each type of thought starter mentioned in the white paper you'll receive as part of this presentation. I will also include pitfalls to avoid with each of these. Now I'm going to pass it to Kat to talk about software, apps, and tools you can use to create your engaging content.
Thank you, Heather. One of the best tools for someone who maybe doesn't have a great design background, or that's not your main profession, that's okay. There are so many tools these days that really allow kind of the everyday person to become a little bit of a designer themselves. One of the best out there is Canva Pro. It's a wonderful tool because you have access to thousands of premium templates for all different types of social media posts, including images, carousels, stories, and so much more. You also have access to premium content like stock photography, video, and music. So that means you don't have to have a separate account on Adobe Stock or something like that because you're getting that within your Canva Pro account. It's a huge perk. You can also set up a brand kit, which is super important for consistency. So what I mean when I say set up a brand kit, there's a section on Canva that allows you to upload your brand colors, your brand logo, fonts. You can set a lot of these things from the bat. So when you go to use a template, it will apply your brand kit and get you into a much better starting place than you would before. They also have great tools like Resize and Magic Switch, so you can resize any design indefinitely for any platform, instantly transforming a square image intended for an Instagram feed into a vertical image for Instagram stories or any other size that you can imagine. So there's also a great photo editing tool that we just showed in this video. It can remove backgrounds, expand photos, drag and drop objects into the photo, and use the Magic Edit to add anything that you want to your image. So these are all great tools and definitely a great option. I'm curious, do we have any Canva users? Feel free to drop it in the chat if you are. Another good one for us, or for anyone, is Adobe Creative Cloud. A lot of these options are great for you as well. So it comes with a large stock image library, which includes that access to their generative AI, which here's a look right here at where to toggle that on and off within their filters in case if you don't want to be confused by what is generative AI and what's not, because trust me, it's getting a little bit hard to tell these days. You have access to a huge library of fonts. There's a lot of cross collaboration that's available within Creative Cloud. You can easily share files and reviewers can comment and everyone can see what's happening in real time, which is really great. You have access to so many tutorials and a whole support community. So if you ever run into a problem that you can't figure out, if you need a question answered, there are a ton of options there. It's also great for cloud storage and syncing, and again, sharing these components across applications, across departments, or however you need to collaborate within your company. And now I'm going to pass it back over to Megan to talk more about test and learning.
So our final recommendation is arguably the most important thing you can do. It's to test and learn. Test and learning is how you improve your content strategy. First, you need to define your objective. Do you want to increase engagement, boost shares, etc.? Then you need to choose what you want to test. There are a lot of different variables that we can, pull the levers on, but at the end of the day, it comes down to what works best for your school and like what is working, what you think will work best. So some common ones that I like to test a lot of the times are day of the week, post time, and channel. They're really easy to test because you can do like a true A/B test on them where you're like, one day I'm going to post this at, I'm going to share my post at 5 p.m. and then the next time I'm going to share it at 3 p.m. and you can see which performs better. Then execute. You can either try an A/B test, which is just running two of the same things, but slightly different variations, or you can do a multivariate test, which tests a lot of variables all at once. What that just means is, maybe you're wanting to do one piece of content as a reel on Instagram, but then you think it'll work better as, single image text on X. So that's kind of an example of a multivariate test. It's a lot more challenging to figure out what's working, but it gives you a lot more opportunity for success by testing more variables at once. Then use your social media management tool if possible to look at reporting. You can tag your posts with labels. I recommend using labels like image, video, those kinds of things. It makes it really easy to go back and look at what was, driving the engagement last year. Was it video? Was it images? You can also create custom tags like interactive content or humorous to get like an understanding of what tone people like the most. So definitely use your labeling and make sure to focus on one KPI to determine success. It gets too complicated when you look at a whole bunch of KPIs. So decide if engagement is the most important to you. And then lastly, ask yourself why. That really gets into the nitty-gritty of figuring out, all right, which variable did we pull that we think did really well? From there, you can kind of create a hypothesis and then start running experiments with your content and seeing, what works best for you and continues to. Then once you've kind of figured out what's worked, continue the process and then you can start scaling it. You can run boosted posts or paid social ads to see, I think that using this popular song is working with my audience, but I have a pretty small audience. Maybe I should scale it and run it as a boosted post to see how many other people engage with it. So that is testing and learning. And that also wraps up our discussion really for today. All of our key recommendations, that we discussed. But what we've done is we have put together key takeaways for what we've talked about today. So the first things first, always consider your audience, your channels, and your goals when planning content. If you didn't watch the last webinar, I believe it is available if you want to go back and watch the recording. We covered everything on social media strategy. So go back, look at that, and then figure out how it pertains to your content strategy. Then take a look at a content calendar. Plan out, a month in advance at least. You can even start thinking about 6 months, even a year if you want, if you're that ambitious, if you're planning like really big projects. So have a calendar, stay up to date on the latest creative best practices. That can be a challenge, but again, follow those accounts that we provided and look at those resources. They are going to be your friend when it comes to staying up to date. So our presentation will probably be out of date in a year because that's just how fast social media works. It still has a lot of great foundations here, but the platforms are constantly changing. Then question a trend before hopping on one. So trends we were able to lightly touch on today. We could get into a whole webinar series itself on trends, but instead of spending all of our time there, what we've done is provided a link out to social media trends in higher education. Like Heather was saying earlier, this is going to cover, the power of trend surfing, social media trend categories, how to navigate the risks and pitfalls of trends. And then lastly, we have updated just even through the end of last week, what the latest social media trends are that you can hop on for your school. So highly recommend checking out this white paper. And the last recommendation, use internal and external resources to scale your content production. It's really difficult to do everything on your own. So really call back to this presentation and see what makes the most sense for your school and who you can tap into to help. I will note this presentation will also be shared with everyone. So you will get this additional resource plus today's presentation. So that will be sent out by Lumina Foundation via email. So be on the lookout for that in the next week or so. And make sure to look for that white paper too. So that concludes today's presentation. We'll take the next 10 minutes to answer any questions that you may have. And feel free to drop them into the chat.
We have one question, if we could share that additional resources link in the chat here. Could you drop that, Megan? Or actually, I can grab it.
Oh, that will be sent via PDF later on.
Okay.
Yes.
Does anyone have like a great example of a social media post or something that you've done in the last year or so that maybe was successful that they'd like to share? If we don't have any questions.
I think we can call back to a question earlier about ADA too. I wanted to note that you can add alt text is a very helpful way to improve your accessibility. If you have Sprout Social, I know that alt text is now available for you to add that in. I'm not so sure about Loomly or Hootsuite at the moment, but I know that Sprout just recently added that feature. Alt text is what is used to describe what's on screen. So it's for visually impaired Instagram users or any social media platform.
And I also did share a few links in the chat with some accessibility best practices. One is an overview from Harvard, and then there are a couple links to Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for their specific accessibility guidelines as well.
Okay, Jennifer had a question that I'll go ahead and take if that's all right with Kat and Heather.
Go for it.
How do you balance a calendar with being spontaneous and jumping on trends? Such a great question. I tend to plan out mostly my content on a monthly basis. It allows me to be flexible, to know what's coming up. I really will plan only quarterly when it comes to really big events and initiatives. So, maybe I'm thinking about Q4 right now. So I'm like, okay, we need to think about things like Veterans Day or even a holiday post or things like that. So, or I guess in community college's case, like thinking about, all right, Q4s means for us that we're going to be really focusing on finals and end of the fall semester. So getting people enrolled and the spring semester, all of that. So as far as jumping on trends, in my calendar, I will put placeholders. Sometimes I'm like, okay, leave room. Don't always fill up your calendar with like 7 posts in a week. That's not recommended. That's why I try to stick to 3 to 5 posts per week because it can allow you to jump on trends. You just have to know how quickly you can hop on them. For example, those memes that you can create in CapCut, super easy. You can turn that around in a day. But other trends might take a little while for you to film. So.
This is a good question. How would we pick content for posts if you have a large mix of traditional and non-traditional students who don't necessarily keep up with the same social media trends? I would almost think of this as like a Venn diagram and have posts that are specifically for the younger audience, posts that are specifically for the older audience, and then what ways can you find that middle ground where they might meet together?
That's a great point, Kat. Something else I like to do for different audiences, when you plan out your calendar, and I could probably go back to that slide really quick just to show, you can see there are a little bit of color coordinations in here, but we didn't include what I usually have, which is a legend. When I plan things out, I will label everything and I'll say, okay, this is for this kind of audience and this is for this one. So I think planning it out that way and finding the right balance, right, is what you need to do when you're planning out your content calendar. Then think about how some of these you might adapt and share something completely different on TikTok or Instagram Reels than you would on like Facebook and X, such as like a faculty spotlight. You might hop on a trend and do something like using a trending sound right now on TikTok, but on Facebook, you might just take a picture of Jim or whoever it is and post it with a nice quote or something like that.
This is a good question too about a college that has 4 campuses. So is it best to keep general college posts on the main account and then reshare posts that are campus specific to stories? I would say that that's probably a good approach if you have Instagram accounts or social accounts for all 4 of those. Definitely sharing each other's posts, making sure that, you know, if your audience is active on both, that they're seeing some of the same content, or just allowing people to follow one or both. Yeah, I would
That's
definitely.
also besides campuses for other departments. You may have departments or athletic departments or student services departments that have their own socials. That is something you can do if you're struggling to find a content idea, is just reshare something that would apply from their content.
Yeah. And also I saw the note about utilizing collaborations on Instagram. I think that is a great way too. So now there's a feature where you can technically have the post be shared by 2 different accounts, and it tags them both. It goes on both accounts, but then that reach gets a little bit bigger because you're sharing to 2 audiences instead of 1. So that'd be a great way to approach it as well.
And to add to that, Kat, actually with collaborations, it used to just be 2 pages that you could tag. Now I don't even know if there's a limit, but I've seen up to 5 collaborations in one post. So you could do it theoretically to all of your campus pages if you wanted to have one post that goes out everywhere to maximize reach. Let's see. There was another one I saw about, okay. Sarah asked, do you schedule all of your posts / captions ahead of time or post real time based on the content in your calendar? I try to schedule out my content a month or about like the week before the upcoming month. So for example, right now it's September 24th. I'm pretty deep into planning our clients' October content calendars. So what I do is once everything's approved, I get it into my social media management tool. I schedule it out, and I have those spaces that I leave for trends. Then I'm just flexible too, knowing like, okay, I can just move things around if need be.
I don't know if you might know the answer to this, Megan, but as far as like copywriting on memes or for memes and resharing those types of memes, do you have any best practices there?
Yes. So generally, if your video is under a minute, there are a lot of copyright, what's the word I'm looking for? Like there's an understanding when it comes to copyright. So this doesn't necessarily apply to things that use music, but let's say like TV shows or just other like pop culture fun memes that are on CapCut. If it's through CapCut, there is a copyright feature that you can check, but if it's under a minute long, it shouldn't get flagged for copyright issues or anything like that. The only, difference to that is if you're using music, it won't let you use music. You'll get flagged for that, especially on TikTok.
Awesome.
It looks like we are just about at time. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I think we're just gonna wrap up here. I don't think we have enough time to answer any more questions. So just as a quick reminder, we will be sharing we won't, but Lumina Foundation will be sharing today's presentation with you all. They will also be sharing the white paper that we discussed, which is hopping on trends.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.
Bye.
Yes, thank you.